Donkey Kong Jr., Diddy Kong, Dixie Kong, Pauline, Funky Kong, Kritter, King K. Rool, Boo, Monty Mole, Nabbit, Hammer Bro, Chargin Chuck, Paratroopa, King Bob-omb, Noki, Boom Boom, Pom Pom, Piantissimo, Pianta, Piranha Plant, Shadow Mario, Luma, Captain Toad, Bob-omb, Honey Queen, Lubba, Penguru, Dino Piranha, Dr. Mario, R.O.B.
What's poppin', all you Funky Kong fanatics? It's your boy, Shottyflo, and I'm here to answer an extremely important question. Who is next in the Mario Kart Booster Pass? With Booster Pass Wave 5 bringing us 3 new characters, that leaves Wave 6 to deliver 2 final drivers. And today, I'm going to do my best to put myself in Nintendo's shoes and choose which characters I think they're most likely to add. Sorry if I repeat myself a little bit throughout. I may not get it right and you may have different opinions than me, but that's okay, because by the end of the year, we'll have our Wave 6 and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's 10-year journey will be complete. How are we picking, you ask? With a tournament, of course. But who's competing? Remember all those guys I named at the start? Yeah, those freaks. All of these characters, bar 2 of them, I've talked about in greater depth in my Mario Kart Ultimate Roster Reveal series, so go check that out if you haven't already. We've got 30 characters competing for the spot, so we better get a move on. With a 30-man tournament, there's going to be 2 buys, and thanks to the holy guidance of the wheel picker, let's just spin it and see who we're going to get. Who's it going to be? Who's going through? It's going to be, for number 1, Shadow Mario. I think did it just go all the way around? And let's see who number 2 will be. Actually, wait, let me take him out. Get him out of here! Number 2 is going to be... Who's it going to be? Noki. Okay, well, good luck, Noki. We've determined that Shadow Mario and Noki will get the buys. Now we just need to shuffle that bracket seating and boom! The stage is set. Our first match is between 2 tour terrorists, Hammer Bro and Chargin Chuck. Both of these guys have only appeared in Mario Kart Tour, as I said, but in my opinion, Hammer Bro should have been in a mainline game already. He's far more iconic and recognizable, and they also have the option of giving him alternate colorways, just like they did for Birdo. Chuck just doesn't have that much going for him. He's breaking out as a spin-off character, just barely, but it's not going to be enough this time. Sorry, Chuck. You're getting chucked, buddy. Alright, if you followed along with my other series, then here's a little treat. It's R.O.B versus Nabbit. I'm sure some of you are excited to see R.O.B here, and I know for a fact that some of you want him to be a character Nintendo goes with here. He of course had his famous appearance in Mario Kart 7, but that's about it. His claim to fame nowadays is Smash, and I don't know if I really see Nintendo choosing such an old novel character here. Nabbit, on the other hand, is absolutely on the up and up recently, being a playable character in a handful of spin-off titles, as well as Mario Kart Tour, which is why I believe Nabbit should probably go through to the next round. Next up, we got Pom Pom versus... Oh, who's that? It's Dr. Mario. Dr. Mario is the other character I didn't talk about in my other show, but the truth is, he's highly iconic. He's got his own games, he's in Mario Kart Tour, and Nintendo love jerking themselves off with reskins, so can we really write him off? And then dear Pom Pom. If we went with Pom Pom here, then they would have to also go with Boom Boom most likely, which means that the chances of them both getting it is just so unlikely, I feel like. That being said, she has appeared without him as a playable character before in Super Mario Party, so she's willing to leave him behind, but is her girl boss independence enough to save her from the jizz-stained lab coat of Dr. Mario? I think not. This one's gonna hurt some people, and maybe some monkeys. It's Dixie Kong versus Funky Kong. There's really not much that needs to be said about Funky Kong. He was obviously in Mario Kart Wii as an absolute fan favorite, and people have been begging on their knees for Nintendo to bring the Funky Monkey back into the roster, me included. Dixie is another thing though. While fans have been asking for her for a long time, they only just got her in Tour, and guess who came with her? I like Dixie, but I think this is just going to be another common Funky Kong W. Alright, next up we got Boo versus Dino Piranha. I gotta get this off my chest. I don't know if this guy was baiting me or if he's got some screws loose, but he was convinced that King Boo and regular Boo are the same character, and thus they should be a skin for one another. I argued him down to they're too similar to be different characters in Mario Kart, which, you know, it's arguable, but now I'm curious to know the wider opinions, because I read that King Boo was actually Bowser, which is interesting, but I don't want to spread misinformation here. But King Boo is certainly physically different from regular Boos, no? He's bigger, he's got the crown, he's literally ruling over a race or species of beings. I don't know how he's the same character as his underlings. Anyway, I ranted for too long, and Dino Piranha from Mario Galaxy will never be a playable character in anything as much as it sucks, so Boo takes another W, and let's just move on. Next up, we got the Pee-Pee versus the Queen. Honey Queen is certainly a strong contender here, especially after the rise of the Wigglers, and that's of course because those two were both from Mario Kart 7. So I feel like this gives Honey Queen a decent edge over a character like Piranha Plant, who also certainly has an argument thanks to his Smash appearance. You might say, wait, but R.O.B was in Mario Kart 7 too, and he's in Smash. He wasn't in Tour, and neither was Honey Queen. How are you gonna disrespect R.O.B like that? Look here, kiddo, R.O.B is old news, and well, so is Honey Queen respectively. But Honey Queen has the advantage in the fact that she's from the Mario universe. But it's not Honey Queen versus R.O.B, it's Honey Queen versus Pee-Pee. I would actually love Piranha Plant as a driver because I think the character has a sneaky amount of life and personality, but logic is taking over and telling me that Honey Queen is the more likely choice. It would also be strange to use the Piranha Plant item as a Piranha Plant, so yeah, I don't see it. Out from the underground and down from the stars, it's Montimus Moleman versus Luma. I was already hesitant about putting Luma in the other series, and I'm extra hesitant to push it along here because they really just don't have the most kart-friendly design. That, coupled with the fact that there's a Luma floating around Rosalina at all times, and I think that you've just got some redundancy going on. The Moleman, however, is in Tour, and I think would make a delightful little morsel to top off the booster pack. How far will the Moleman take his reign of terror? Alright, next up we got two absolute goats facing off in a battle to the racetrack. It's Penguru versus Bob-omb, baby. Let's go. Where my bombers at? These two are a couple of obscure legends from the Mario Galaxy games, and it's honestly a tough choice because neither of them are very convincing cases. Penguru would actually be a pretty cool option for a heavyweight driver. Extremely out of left field. Maybe a little too out of left field. Bob-omb is a polarizing figure, you know. Some people would love it, some people would die in a mysterious explosion. I want to point you to a little game called Dr. Mario World, a game that hasn't been online since November of 2021. If we look down through the assistants here, oh, who's that? That's right, baby. Bob-omb officially has more appearances in spin-off games than Penguru, which means Bob-omb on top, baby. Our first battle of the big boys. We got the lovely Pianta facing off against King K. Rool. I'm sure many of you recognize the Pianta. If you've ever played on Delfino Plaza on the Wii, you've seen these guys on the sidelines clapping endlessly. One must imagine Sisyphus as a Pianta on the sidewalk of Isle Delfino. I personally think that Pianta would be a fun addition to the roster because they come in many different colors, and I love their goofy ass sounds. Goobers. K. Rool is probably frothing at the mouth, wanting to get into the game though. He's Donkey Kong's big bad, which leads me to question why he's not in more spin-off games nowadays. I guess the Donkey Kong games just aren't popping off, I don't know. But I think that status alone, coupled with his appearance in Smash and Sluggers, which they both appeared in as playable characters, does actually make King K. Rool the more likely choice for the roster in this case. Another battle of absolute chads. We got Il Piantissimo versus King Bob-omb. Il Piantissimo is one of my favorite characters in the Mario games, but I'm not sure Nintendo feels the same. He's sort of in the Penguru category where he just exists as a vehicle to get Mario a couple more stars in whatever game you're playing. Not a major character by any means. Still a pokey little flab biscuit. Ugh, bitch ass. King Bob-omb played an arguably smaller role in his debut game, being the source of a singular but nearly inaugural Power Star. Despite that small but important role as Super Mario 64's first boss, King Bob-omb has found himself in a number of spin-off situations, from Mario Party to golf and even to Tour. This makes him the no-brainer pick over Il Piantissimo, who will unfortunately not live to run another day. Alright, next up we got Boom Boom Shake Shake the Room versus Oh Captain My Captain. Boom Boom, as mentioned earlier, is part of a tight duo with Pom Pom, so it's unlikely he goes anywhere without her. He's even more unlikely, especially with the way that she leaves him behind to go party with her friends. Captain Toad also has his own group that he frequents, the Toad Brigade, but unlike Boom Boom, Captain Toad doesn't rely on the brigade members to take his spotlight. With his own game, a spot on the tour roster, and exponentially larger waves created in the scene, Nintendo would most likely choose Captain Toad over Boom-Boom. Next up, we got a battle of the Double Dashers. It's Paratroopa versus Diddy Kong. I'm not gonna lie, it felt scripted when that wheel picked Paratroopa in the other video because I would have had to bring him back for this one regardless. Real talk though, both of these characters have been playable in at least one mainline Mario game, but one has been in more than the other, obviously. Diddy was also featured in Mario Kart Wii, of course, and he is in Tour as well, which Paratroopa actually isn't in. While I wish I could stand with the Paratroopers, I'm afraid I'm joining the Jungle Force today. Alright, next up in the arena is Pauline and Lubba. Pauline is a dangerous character here because Nintendo has really come around to love this character nowadays. The original princess has been squeezing her way onto spin-off rosters here and there since Mario Odyssey, and I think Nintendo would really be tempted to choose Pauline as the next additional driver. Lubba, on the other hand, has never been featured as a playable character before, and I'm afraid is most likely lost to the ages as far as Nintendo is concerned. So yeah, Pauline is going to take this one. Moving on. Next up, we have my father, Kritter, versus Donkey Kong Jr. And well, guys, I think it's pretty clear who's moving on here. I mean, let's be real. It's Kritter. Let's go, baby. Nah, but for real, DK Jr. was in the first Mario Kart game ever, and even returned in Tour, whereas Kritter has never stepped foot in a car as far as I'm aware. It pains me to see him go, but unfortunately, Kritter is eliminated, and DK Jr. is moving on, and that's the end of round 1. Moving on to round 2, things are going to get a little bit tougher from now on, now that most of the throwaway characters are gone. For the 15th match, we've got Shadow Mario versus Hammer Bro. Shadow Mario is of course from Super Mario Sunshine and was the main antagonist in the sense that he was actually Bowser Jr. all along. So he's technically not a reskin, but still resembles Mario, which makes me surprised that he doesn't have an actual spot. Looking at you, Metal Mario. What are you doing there? He's been a playable character before in golf, so they're not completely against putting him in spin-offs. However, I think that when you look at Hammer Bro as a character, he's just got a lot going for him. The fact that he's in Mario Kart Tour, coupled with the fact that the characters Nintendo has already brought in are all unique, makes Hammer Bro the more likely addition in my opinion. Next up, we've got Nabbit versus Dr. Mario. Two very different characters, but they have one thing in common. They will try to run your pockets if you give them the chance. They actually have another thing in common. They're both, of course, featured in Mario Kart Tour. That's about the only thing they have going for them in terms of Mario Kart, so it really comes down to which one we think Nintendo would rather get in bed with. We know how much Nintendo loves their reskins, but glancing over at the Booster Pass characters that have already been released makes me think that they're most likely wouldn't be going with a reskin or reskin adjacent characters. Dr. Mario has a stronger historical background, but Nabbit has been increasing in relevancy in recent Mario titles. I think that Nintendo would rather go with Nabbit in this case, honestly, because he's so unique, and there have also been no lightweight drivers introduced with the Booster Pass yet, so he seems much more likely to me. Moving on. Next up, we got the legend, Funky Kong, taking on Boo. While I stand strong at the front line against the Boo haters, I do have to admit that his inclusion, like Piranha Plants, would be a bit strange, considering that Boo is an item in the game already. I would even go as far to say, though, that if Boo wasn't an item, Boo would most likely already be a driver. Maybe that's a hot take.
You decide.
Nonetheless, it matters not whether Boo is an item because his competition is fierce, sturdy, immaculately masculine, chill as fuck, a based Sigma Chad, a funk-pilled Kong Cell, a gorilla with cooler shades than me, it's Funky Kong, and he's moving on. Next up, we got the Battle of Mid. Just kidding, it's Honey Queen versus Montimus. One's 10 feet below you, the other's 10,000 light years above you. How can I decide? They both have exactly one appearance in Mario Kart titles. Honey Queen in Mario Kart 7 and Monty in Tour. Nintendo's choice of Kamek is one that gives me a few different impressions. Hear me out. First, they aren't afraid to add characters who haven't been in the mainline games before. Second, they may be choosing based on what the community has been asking for a long time. I think the other picks reinforce that one as well. That's precisely what makes it difficult to choose because Honey Queen not coming back for Tour either means that Nintendo wants to leave the character out entirely, or they're waiting for her to be announced so that they can add her to the Tour roster, just like they did for Wiggler. That's where Monty Mole has somewhat of an edge, but after Nintendo triggered the unforeseen and highly impactful Wiggler event of 2023, I'm kind of more confident in Honey Queen coming back in this instance. I don't know. What do you think? All right, next up we have the outlier matchup. I love Bob-omb dearly, and I'm not just saying that because he's issued a bomb threat on my house, but in this instance where neither character is relevant in the slightest, I'm just choosing based off of who is marginally more well known and has been playable before. Of course, Noki would fit that description between the two. Noki, who are of course the NPC characters of Al Delfino in Mario Sunshine and other spin-offs, scrape by off the back of their opponent's irrelevancy. I want to see salutes in the comments for Bob-omb. Noki would not be a good addition to the game. I'm just gonna go out and say it, but this time they take the dub. By the way, I have a whole rap about Bob-omb. It's really dumb, go watch it. Next up we got the Royal Rumble, the Clash of Kings. It's King Bob-omb versus King K. Rool. Who wins? An army of monkeys or a carpet bombing? There you have it. Guys, I'm a big fan of the lizards, this is no secret. They're just goofy as fuck, and I dig it. But my god, what a lovely mustache. King Bob-omb is actually a playable driver in Tour, as I mentioned previously, and that gives him a huge edge over K. Rool. Not to mention the fact that K. Rool hasn't been playable in a Mario spin-off game in forever, and King Bob-omb is far closer to the Mario franchise than K. Rool will ever be. Unfortunately for K. Rool, King Bob-omb is gonna give it to you like a Bob-omb do. If you get that, you a real one. Coming up in match 21, we've got Captain Toad versus Diddy Kong. Both are characters with their own titles, so their name value is strong. But if we're judging by the same rules as everyone else, I'm afraid Captain Toad likely sits in the same position as Dr. Mario, where they're sort of a pseudo reskin, and I don't think that's what Nintendo is looking to give us. His competition is also strong, as Diddy Kong is a historically important character that Nintendo seems to hate for some reason. But I don't think that Nintendo's fuming rage over the little monkey guy would be enough for Captain Toad to take his spot. So the Monkey Man is moving on. Next up, it's Pauline versus Donkey Kong Jr., a couple of tour representatives and absolute old-timers of the Mario and Donkey Kong franchises. They're both classic in their own way, with Pauline sporting a brand new modern render and DK Jr. preserving the nostalgia that many feel for the older games. I think that's actually what DK Jr. is best suited for, representing a past that's already lost to the ages. Pauline represents Nintendo's new modern vision in a way, and I think that's part of why she's been getting shoehorned into every spin-off game since Mario Odyssey. I think that Nintendo wouldn't hesitate to put Pauline in before DK Jr. just because of the fact that she'll sell more games in the future. Now it's time to move on to the quarterfinals. It's getting tighter than Daisy in a racing suit, and I think that we're gonna start disagreeing with each other more and more as I go, but let's go. For our first quarterfinal match, we've got Hammer Bro versus Nabbit, a true scuffle between Bowser's minions. This one in particular makes me wonder how much they're factoring in an even balance of weights between the new drivers they add. Because if they want an even spread, then Hammer Bro would automatically be out and Nabbit would go through because he's a lightweight driver in Tour. But if they just don't care, then I would assume that Hammer Bro is then a more likely pick because he's much more established as a longtime character in the Mario series and has been excluded for so long despite fans wanting him to be added. The fact that Nintendo revealed the two heavyweights already sort of gives me an impression that they don't care as much, because if it were me, I would have left the biggest and most exciting characters until the end. That's just me though, and Nintendo and I have wildly different thought processes when it comes to how to do a live service game. All that said though, I'm going to be pushing Hammer Bro through to the semifinals. Next up in the quarterfinals, we've got Funky Kong taking on the Queen. I'm afraid this is likely where the Queen meets her end, as Funky Kong is simply a more popular character by far. He was also featured in Mario Kart Tour, which shows that Nintendo isn't against bringing him back. Until Honey Queen rears her big ugly bug mug in Tour or something else, I'm afraid she's got very little as far as leverage against a character like Funky Kong. Catch me with the bug spray up in Funky Stadium. Funky's moving on again. Our third quarterfinal matchup will be between Noki and King Bob-omb, and yeah, I mean, there's not really much that needs to be said about this one. Noki is here by means of the corrupt and fraudulent seeding system, and this is the punishment that they deserve. From one bomb to the next, Noki truly can't catch a break. The last quarterfinal match is a big one between Diddy Kong and Pauline. This one is actually impossible to choose. Do you go with the robbed and deserving Diddy Kong, who has been relegated to the Shadow Realm for years, or do you go with Nintendo's shiny new side piece who they bring along to every function? This is where I might fuck up big time, because I genuinely think that Diddy Kong, given his history and his presence in Mario Kart Wii and Tour, has a slightly higher chance of taking one of the spots than Pauline does. I'm cringing internally internally because it feels like the wrong choice, but it's the one I'm going with. I don't think either choice in this situation is a bad one, as honestly both of these characters could end up being the real ones. Let me know what you guys think and what you would have done here. And please spare me if you would have done something different. We're finally almost done and on to the semifinals, which are sort of just the finals because each semifinal will decide one character that I have apparently deduced that Nintendo would decide to add to the game. I feel like I've made a million mistakes already. First up is Hammer Bro taking on Funky Kong. This one is also so tough for me because I feel like Nintendo can only give us so much of what we want, and a lot of the time they deliver in areas we don't expect or perhaps just didn't ask for. That's why I personally think that the more the community begs for a character like Funky Kong, the more likely they are to receive a character like Hammer Bro. Am I making any sense here? Part of me, as a fellow Funky Kong fanatic, wants to say that Funky has a clear historical advantage in the context of Mario Kart games, but another part of me wants to counter that and say that Nintendo works in mysterious ways, and I genuinely don't want to jinx Funky Kong with this. That being said, they're both incredibly strong options, and I think that they both have a chance. It's really a tough decision, and I don't have a satisfactory amount of reasoning, even for myself, to make this choice, but I genuinely think that there's a higher chance of them adding Hammer Bro than Funky Kong. So that's just what I'm gonna go with, and I'm not looking back. I'm sorry to betray you, Funky Kong fanatics, but if the day comes that Nintendo reveals the final wave and Funky Kong isn't there, who's really the one who betrayed you? That of course means that Hammer Bro will take one of the spots according to my own tournament that I made. Why does it feel so wrong? I don't know, but we gotta see who will join him in the final battle of the tournament between King Bob-omb and Diddy Kong. I really like both of these characters, man. I think they both have a lot going for them. In terms of relevancy, Diddy Kong has the clear edge, but King Bob-omb doesn't fall completely flat in that regard by any means. I think King Bob-omb is hurt by the fact that there's already two big boys in the booster pack with Petey and Wiggler, because I'm not sure how keen they would be to make half the new characters heavyweights. I personally have no problem with that because in my opinion the heavier characters tend to be more interesting. This also plays a factor into why I think Diddy would be a better choice, as his inclusion as a lightweight would add more variety into the game. I have to admit that I'm always a fan of newcomers, so I would genuinely love to see King Bob-omb join the roster, but I also feel extremely strongly that Diddy Kong has been shafted and robbed of his spot by characters like the Koopalings. I have to assume that the people over at Nintendo would look at their options and think the same. I'll be shocked if after 3 different Mario Kart 8 DLCs, Diddy Kong still isn't in the game. So that's why this is where King Bob-omb self-destructs and Diddy Kong moves on to claim the final spot in the Mario Kart Booster Pass, according to me, cosplaying as Nintendo. So we finally made it and we landed on Hammer Bro and Diddy Kong. I don't think these are crazy picks. I could see this happening and I'm not too weirded out by this result. It was extremely hard to decide between some of these characters and I'm sure you guys disagreed with me quite a bit along the way. I can say that I think if Pauline was on the other side of the bracket, she had an extremely high likelihood of making it through to the end. It's just that she had to face Diddy in the quarterfinals. Nonetheless, Hammer Bro and Diddy Kong are both unique characters who have long deserved a spot in the roster, and I don't think that's arguable, so I wouldn't complain if this ended up being the real outcome. I had fun today, and I hope you did too. That was the whole point after all. I'm certainly no fortune teller, leaker, or data analyst, but I am Shottyflo, and more Mario Kart videos are coming soon, so be sure to like and subscribe if you're vibing with me. Shotty out. Deuces.